Welcome to my studio. This is where all the magic happens, and I produce all of my books and my art in this room. And I will give you a little bit of a close-up and run around of the room just so you can see what it looks like. These are just some art pieces that I hang all over the walls. My prayer flags are up at the top. Gifts from friends. And over on this side is my place where I have my quiet times and do my design work. My office space. And my very messy design wall that's half filled right now. And of course, my faithful, lovely sewing machine. So I have mainly out my papers that I've been experimenting on with my heat press, and I want to discuss what happened with those. And then the papers that I made with you all the other day and after we left, and some fabrics and some coordinating fabrics. And we're going to do some color design work here, just so you can see how I make decisions. And again, you're the artist, you get to do what you want to do. On my papers that I dyed the other day with you all, I discovered one piece that is really not usable unless I'm just going to take that piece and just do art on it, and that's all. I found 4 pieces here where they have great covers, but not so great inside. And again, those can be used for cards where I don't need such a strong image on the inside, or I can embellish those and make some pretty great images on the inside, either with sewing or with drawing or by covering them with other images. Oh, that one's okay. That one's the other side. That one's okay. Not so much. So those are the 4 pieces that I'm not sure about. These are the pieces that I'm going to use. In my art journals, normally I make 5 what I call chapters. They are called signatures by everyone else, and that's okay that they're signatures, but in my thinking, they're much more logical to call them chapters. So with my chapters, I want about 4 or 5 thin pieces of paper in my each chapter. I don't want more than 4 thick pieces though, because they just get too thick. I can add fabric pages in there or just utilize these. So I'm going to be using this stack of paper here. And so if I have 5 chapters in my book and I have 4 pieces, the max I'm going to want is 20 pieces, but I'm probably going to need about 16 pieces of paper. So I've got my paper all lined up and ready to go. I also am going to want to put envelopes in them. I like to put them to hide notes into them. And these are some that I dyed the other day. Again, not so great on one side, but they're going to be sewn down, so we won't see those. When I was doing the sample dyeing, I also did one of these tea bags. One side wasn't as strong. This side really turned out nicely. So I can stitch this down to put little secret messages inside of there. And I usually cut this off when I put that in because that's just bulky. I don't need it. And I leave that open to stick secret things inside. Here's some other paper. This was the Reeves watercolor paper, and I told you it bleeds more, and I just love that effect, but I can put that inside to add a different texture. This was the paper that I put the metal grid in and then put my silk piece of fabric in there, and I just love the grids. Just love the grids. Circles are kind of my favorite thing. Also wanted to talk about the difference between the heat press that I use with my vintage photos, and with the heat press I get great images on the outside, but they just bleed through on the inside. But again, nothing on the inside. So if I fold that to put it on the inside of my book, I'm going to have the inside of this that I'm going to either need to embellish, or I'm going to need to write on, or I'm going to need to add other images to, or I'm going to need to stitch down another page. And this is the rags cotton that I love to work with so much, and you can get it in a big enough piece of paper that you can fold it like the other ones and use it like that. Now the difference, these are all with the heat press. These are all ones that I dyed the other day with you all, and these I put into my tile bundles, and I put leaves on the inside and the outside of those, and at least I got some coloring and some patterns and made them a little bit more interesting to look at. This one turned out very nice. That's my great-grandmother, Ruby. Now, the next thing I need to do is I need to decide, with these papers, I auditioned fabric to figure out which ones I liked the most. As you can see, this group of papers have a lot of yellows. They have some blues in them, they have some browns in them, and they have a lot of this burnt orange and very dark burnt brown in them. And so that's the colors that I decided to go with. I auditioned some green in there because I did have pages that were very green. I needed to decide, did I want a yellow, did I want a lime green, did I want a green? And after I auditioned, I discovered I like the rust colors the best. So these are the colors that I have gone with. And as you see from the photo album I put together, there are books that are covered that are just the outside of the paper. There are books that are covered with a hardbound that are covered with either the silk or the fabric. There are books that are made with just the fabric covers. And this is totally up to you and what you'd like to do. But I'm going to need some pieces of fabric that I can utilize to cover blank areas. And I might just do a strip along an edge, I might do a square, and when I sew them down, then I have the corresponding stitches on the back side. When I do sew them, and I take the tension or the thread length and lengthen it out to 3 on my machine instead of 2.4. And because if the stitching is too close, it makes a perforated line and it's very easy to punch out. But if you want to punch them out, that's a great way to get them punched out. So that's what I'm going to do with all of my fabrics, is I'm going to make the decision of what I want to do. And I've got all the stack of fabric to work with, and I will limit myself to a palette of probably 2 to 3 fabrics only. I do not want to confuse and just keep adding more and more and more fabric. Then I'm going to audition which silks I like the most with it. I also will need to decide on the outside of my book, do I want to do a fabric cover? Do I want to do, that green might be a little bit much, but this brown, that's a little bit too green also, but there's some rust on it. There's also a great piece of fabric that I can use as the outside cover. But if I make an inside cover or the outside cover with a piece of silk, then I can do all the stitching on it. So I've got this all laid out to say, I wonder which one I'm going to like the most. That one might be pretty gosh darn nice. And see, it's the right width that way. But I just go through them and decide which ones I like. And most of these were made when we were doing our wrapping the other day. I like that one quite a bit. Yeah, I like that one quite a bit because it's got the yellows in it, it's got the reds in it, it's got some blacks in it, some grays. That's probably the piece that I will use. favorites so far. A little too dark. This one I kept out because of the brown in it. This was done on my heat press. Not as successful. This one was also done as the carrier cloth on my heat press, which is just a beautiful piece of fabric. Okay, time to get to work.